Have you revolved your life around getting high? Weed culture often starts as a social drug, a drug to let loose and have fun, a fun adventure with others that are around you. It's a way to decompress and hang out with other people. It usually starts in the younger teens and 20s. Eventually, you wake up to a life years later that's nothing like you wanted or should have wanted. But how do you know what you want in your life if you're always running away from how you feel? Some of you might find yourself wishing you started a family, or maybe you went to college, wishing you took more risks rather than avoiding how you feel and playing life safe. For some, it might be wishing you had more friendships and relationships overall, or at least maintain those that you did have. What's the longest you have known yourself sober? And what's going to happen if you continue doing this in the long term? What will be different in the next years to come? Because let's face it, oftentimes people start smoking marijuana to just have a good time. It's a fun adventure. It's something that people use to become more socially integrated with their peers. But over time, you grow up, you move out of the family's house, and you become a part of society. And society has bills, responsibilities, duties, and obligations. All of these things are, on some level, stressful. They can be overwhelming, and they can pile up very quickly if you're not well structured and disciplined in your own personality. This can lead to a whole host of different issues. If you struggle to set boundaries and self-advocate within relationships, you might find yourself having traumatic relationships. And from that, if you don't deal with those issues, going forward, it'll forever change you in the relationships that you have going forward. At the same time, if you have anger issues and you don't necessarily deal with those, there's extreme consequences that you might be facing in the future by not having a better grip over your own emotions and being able to better regulate yourself. That's why prisons exist. Prisons exist to help govern those who are not showing that they can govern themselves. At the same time, you might struggle with anxiety, and that can cause all kinds of muck in your life. You could lose a job over the fact that you continuously have panic attacks behind the wheel of a vehicle, finding it difficult to maintain friendships or going out and being social. So there's some real long-term consequences by avoiding that inner relationship that you could be building with yourself today. And when you have been sober, all these seemingly difficult withdrawal symptoms that come up to the surface are usually not textbook the same for everybody that is being sober themselves. If anything, they're more tailored to who you are. If you're struggling with sleep, anger, mood swings, anxiety, depression, you name it, sleeplessness, all of those things are your body's desire to be heard. It's rebelling in the hopes that you start taking it more seriously. Start taking your internal experience and the issues that you have maybe pushed aside more seriously. As you start to deal with issues within your life, what you tend to find is that your personality takes a turn for the better. You become a calmer version of yourself. You care less what other people have to say about you, and you're more open to just hearing people with different opinions and not taking it personally. At the same time, you might find yourself having more confidence, leading you to getting better advancements in your career path, as you're more apt to self-advocate and go in and say, hey, it's time for that pay raise, or with this other job that I've got lined up, I will be going down that path because they pay more. So there's a lot of benefits to actually doing the inner work on ourselves that can really have a ripple effect on our life going forward. But if you're always high and always chasing that next high and only taking these tolerance breaks so that you can still get high but not have to spend as much money to achieve that level, then what are the consequences of that going forward? You're disconnected from yourself. You've removed the relationship that you have with yourself, because anytime that you go through something slightly uncomfortable, or you're about to go through something slightly uncomfortable, you turn to the marijuana instead of finding some way to overcome those internal dilemmas that you're struggling with. Coping and numbing oneself out is a real thing, and something that a lot of people don't want to face, because at that same level, they don't want to face it because that's what they're doing. They're not facing themselves. Therefore, they'll reject the idea that that's even what they're doing. And the same thing can be said for pornography, video games, and copious amounts of eating, especially junk food when you're not already hungry. Because all we really need at the end of the day to maintain a healthy body is a certain amount of calories within 3 meals for the day. We might want a snack in between, but at the same time, it could be an apple and peanut butter instead of a whole bag of chips. We all know on some level the things that we should be doing more of and the things we should be doing less of. But let's face it, life's not that simple. How we feel on the inside tends to have a huge impact on our ability to move forward in life. If you don't feel that you're capable of overcoming something, chances are you're not going to try to go up against that. If you don't think that self-advocating for yourself is going to end well, you're probably just going to keep your mouth shut. And the list really goes on for all these other things. So you may have a conscious idea or a general sense of what you think your issue is, but if you keep going back and relapsing into marijuana, then you really didn't address the root cause. You didn't get to the source of the issue, where all the other issues are stemming from. And what you may be addressing really is not what matters, because even though you've addressed maybe the fact you have anger and you've tried some deep breathing exercises and maybe changed some things in your social life and career life, if you still have anger issues that you're struggling with, then anger never left. It never got resolved. And if you don't know how to resolve that, then it will continue to be a theme in your life, unless if you deal with the subconscious. And subconscious, at the end of the day, really means hidden from the mind. It's hidden from your own awareness. And let's face it, a lot of people think that that doesn't make a lot of sense, but I'm sure there's some traumatic things that have happened in your life that have maybe caused you to kind of miss chunks of your childhood, your teens, or your 20s, or wherever it was. You have a complete lapse of recall. You can't even remember certain chunks of time in your life. Well, that's because your subconscious mind is protecting you from something it perceives you're not able to handle. So a lot of the things that you're aware of are just the surface layer to a much deeper issue. And you're really just slapping a Band-Aid on it anytime that you address those, but the theme stays the same. So if this is something that you're struggling with, you should start looking at it deeper. You should start questioning if you really know exactly what the problem is, if it still continues to be a theme in your life.